Next, we've got Stuart from Flax and Teal. He's
Hello.
had to come not quite as far as some people. And talking about the dashboarding.
Yes.
So, take it away, Stu.
Yeah, let me just set everything
Maybe,
up.
later.
Yeah. Hello. So, yes, my name is Stuart Marshall. So, I work for Flax and Teal, and for the last year, I've been working on a project with HED. And I have been helping to build these dashboards essentially to just improve on how they can see some of the resources. So basically today, just going to talk about like why we built the dashboards, like what was the reasoning, like what drove us to do it, what the dashboards actually do, give like a little demo just of how they work and what they're showing. How we're using the group structures to build like personalized dashboards for the group levels and also down to like user levels as well. And then a bit about how they are actually working on the back end to produce these results. And then how we're just incorporating different components into the front end to just display information in different ways to make it a bit easier to use and go through these workflows that HD need. So why did we build the dashboards? So we have various teams that are basically updating these resources, maybe not using arches in the usual typical way. They tend to be going into workflows to create resources, and then various teams are then coming in, updating parts of resources, different nodes, and they need to understand what resources have been updated, what's important, essentially like what are active, what have closed off. And in the current search, it's quite difficult to see that. Obviously, you can see maybe like what's been edited at the last page, but particular groups only need to see certain things. And it can just be quite hard to sort of keep track of what teams need to action certain things. So, you know, if like one team's updating certain resources, that will show as edited, but like one group might not need to know that at all. They need to find something that's maybe like 20 resources back that's been edited or so much. So our basic goal was to highlight the resources that were needed by these teams down to like the nodes or the inputs that have been used. So once certain nodes have been changed or updated, it will basically like sort of activate this resource, make it a task, and let them see this. We wanted to be able to show important information to them, so they didn't need everything that was in these resources. A lot of teams only needed to see certain things to make a quick decision on what they needed to do with this resource, and then make edits or sign things off, things like that. And then we also wanted to be able to create a unique set of tasks for these individual groups or individual users. So not everyone wanted to see the same thing. They all wanted to see a different set of tasks that were unique to them. So what do the dashboards do? So the main idea was we create a single dashboard page. We didn't want to create different dashboards for every team. We wanted to have a single page that changed and dynamically updated with the users. So the idea was that we create a series of cards or tasks which would pull information from the resource and then redisplay it to the user. And we wanted a bit of fluidity on how we could do the cards. What we ended up doing was just quite like a one design that we used for a lot, but the idea was the system would allow for any type of card to be used with the dashboards. And then this would also allow us to sort of just bring to the forefront certain information that required the attention for the users to use. And then we could also like build additional widgets or just little front-end CSS components that would allow them to alert easier than you would do just through looking through an edited resource. You know, for things such as like deadline dates or just even like buttons and stuff to open into certain parts of arches without having to then re-navigate from other parts. So here is a demo of what's going on. So we have our dashboard plugin at the side. And then once you load in, this is specific to a single group. So we have our cards displayed, which will just basically is pulling from the resources and they're being filtered down. And then we're just pulling information such as the sort of display name that's shown on the resource. And then we sort of picked individual nodes here that are specific to that team that they wanted to show overall. We're also then just applying things like sorting and filtering as well to make it a bit easier to find things. Obviously, it's quite a small list here, but when you have larger data sets, more tasks, it will make it a bit easier to find certain things. And then with the filtering as well, we're sort of also changing this per group as well. So this updates depending on who you are, what filtering you can see for the different users. So here we're just filtering by council. So we're not limited to what we're showing on the card. We can actually just filter by anything in the resource as well. And then we have additional things, like we have this alert just for deadlines that are upcoming. We also have this response area that we're showing, which can just mark when a different team has responded to this resource to alert admins and things like that. We also have this open button as well, which allows you to open back into the workflow. This is primarily where they're updating the data. So we can then just go back in and make a change, just changing the planning reference name. And then once we go back to the dashboard, all that will just be updated. It will regenerate these tasks and just show us the change name as well. So we'll update as everything is updated live. And we also have these counters as well. So this will basically just take some of those node groups that we've picked, and it will just give us a count of everything that's in there. And that's all configurable per workflow as well that we can set per dashboard that we create. Skip ahead. So the groups. So the groups are quite an important part of how these are working. So we're using these groups to generate these unique dashboards. So we have our grouping structure, and sometimes we're maybe creating multiple groups within one dashboard. And what we're doing is we're basically building different strategies in the back end, so that and then creating a registry to allow them to pick that depending on the group that you're in. So most of the dashboards are at this group level, where if you're a member of one of these groups, you'll then just be displayed this set of tasks that we've predefined that you want to see. But there's a couple of dashboards as well where we can go right down to the user level. So if you're part of the sort of the HP planning users, we can pick you out as an individual user and then show you stuff that's only assigned to you, and then just display that set of tasks. So you're not bloated by the whole team set of tasks that are there. So how are we doing this? So we built it as a plugin, and we're implementing the strategy pattern to basically build this varying logic across the board. So as I say, we're using the groups to pick appropriate strategies, and then we're essentially building a manager. So once you hit that endpoint, you're going into the manager, and then this is working out what you want to be displayed, applying sort of querying and filtering logic that you need to send back the task that you want to see. And then we're also using the Arches ORM, which is coded by Phil, just to help with pulling that data from the resources, so we're not having to pull loads of different tiles to get that information. We can just query the resource and then just pull from aliases. Kind of similar to the query sets, but yeah, slightly different. So this is the basic sort of flow of what happens when you are calling into it. So from the dashboard, we're going into our centralized dashboard script, and this is extracting our user ID, and then from that we're sort of querying for the groups that you're part of, and then from there we pass that into a registry, which then finds the appropriate strategy, and then we can apply our different logic depending on that. We can build custom queries for pulling that data. Then we can extract the resources, and then we can build our own custom data structure to send back to the front end to display those cards. So in the back end, say we're applying these strategies. So we are basically applying a base strategy just to sort of define a contract, I guess, for the dashboard, so we can sort of keep them modular, and we know what's happening with every new strategy that's created. We know it's going to work well with our manager. So the main two things that we're sort of just enforcing is just the query logic and then the data structure that we're doing. And we also have built in a series of helper functions into the actual base strategy as well, which are things just for like doing the counts on the total counters, and some config options as well, which are like passed in to generate some of the more standard things that we've built in the dashboard. So yeah, just sticking with this pattern, it just allows us, without enforcing too much, we're still allowing flexibility, but we're just keeping some things in place so we can build that modular system and expand it easily. So here's just an idea of like a query that we're building for the dashboard that we just seen. So this is using the Archie's ORM just to build these queries. So for this, we're basically looking at the consultation graph, and then from here we're just pulling, this says resource IDs, but it's more like a system reference number that we have for the consultations. So we can just pull that, anything that starts with CON, just to differentiate from other consultations that we have set in the system. Then we can apply additional logic just to look for anything that is set to open, or for one of these teams that's done, or if it's an extension requested, just to filter it down further. And then again, we're also querying on another node to look at who it's assigned to for either of the teams. And then again, we can query down to an individual user level, where we're looking at is the user resource actually assigned to it as well, so that we can apply that logic there. And then we can just apply some sorting logic and do pagination of things to help speed up the performance of loading these resources. And then secondly, what we'll do is we're building the data structure. So from here, what we're doing is we're just taking a series of nodes. We perform a check on them. This is just a function that we wrote just to make sure the nodes hadn't changed, like the alias hadn't changed, and it was throwing an error. And then what we can do is we can take each consultation that we have, and then we can just chain through the actual structure of the graph down to the node that we want, just through the aliases. So we're just going through the action node group, and then just calling the action status, and then similar with all these others. Just makes it a lot easier to read, not having to put the UUIDs in. We can sort of keep track of the nodes that we're trying to pull and the information. We can then just apply additional logic as well, just to get things like the slugs, just to open the workflows. And we can apply other information here as well. And then we can just build our data structure to send back to the front end. One thing to note is we're also just applying a state. So this is quite important for just calling the correct card at the front end. But it also means that we can change the state on the front end by whatever logic is coming through. So if there's certain information and we want to show different cards, we could set just a string value or something to alter that state on the front end as well, to display a multitude of different cards on the dashboard. So then just to take a look at some of the sort of components in. So we have our filtering and sorting. So again, this is dynamic for the groups. This will change depending on what group you are in. So we can pull a load of values from domain values or some concept groups. So we can just take everything from those node options and allow you to filter the resource through those. We can then also check sort of like what groups you're in, and then provide you just the members of that group depending on who you are. So like here we have like admins seeing HB group, HM group, and all the users. If you were just in the HM group, you would just see the HM users that are assigned to the actual group. And then we can apply that and then just add any additional filtering logic that we want as well to filter further if we need. And then we also have our counters. So there was a need to just get a quick overview of like how many like things were open or closed, and this way we can just basically set a configuration, and we can just set a title as the key for what we want to show, and then we can just actually put the alias, the chain to the node of we're using the aliases. And then this will basically then just build through and generate counts for you each time. So every time it's updated, it will just rework out the count and display this at the top. And then, like I say, this is completely customizable, so you can add as many as you want to this. You just have to update this configuration. and it will pull that information from the resource as well to build those. And then we also have our cards and our tasks. So on the front end, we wanted to build custom tasks. We had to sort of constrain it a little bit just so that not too much information and designs were being thrown all over the place for it. But the idea is that you can create a custom task based on that state that I mentioned earlier, so that we can then just display different information depending on what you needed. So we could put through images or maps and things as well if needed. For this project, we just needed to just display dates and strings essentially, but there is potential there to build a more complex design if you wanted to, and also have multiple designs on that one dashboard. Obviously, it does start to throw up a few sort of layout issues, which is mainly why we kept it as it was. And then also, it just opens up for adding any sort of like widgets that we can add to the card, as we mentioned before, of this response, where we're just sort of log in and then identifying when one of the teams has responded to this resource. It just looks for nodes and then just throws up something that's a bit more obvious than just being able to pull that actual text data from the response node that's there. So that's the dashboard. So there's still a few things that maybe need developing on it. It's very specific at the moment to the project that we're on. So I think it'd be quite a good idea if we could maybe generate more default settings in cards or a default data structure that could be used, so you could quickly spin up a dashboard quite easily without having to do too much in the query and data structure logic. Also, an idea has been floated around of using the advanced search to sort of generate the dashboards as well. So we have done this in another dashboard, which uses sort of the advanced search strings to pull the information. I think it'd be a really good idea if we could use that to let users on the front end build their own custom dashboards. So you could build an advanced search, we could then push this into the dashboard, and it would just pull out a series of tasks and information that you set or nodes that you want to see, and it would build that. Also allow for dashboard switching. So we currently are just showing one dashboard for these groups, just again as it was needed, but ultimately I think maybe at more admin levels you might need to switch between different dashboards. I had initially thought maybe you just plow it all into one, but I think this brings up a load more issues for sorting and filtering and things like that. So I think maybe a better approach is you just build a sort of general menu which allows you to switch between these different dashboards and see what you need as you go. And then finally, it's just conversion to the front end to Vue. So we started building this in 7.5, so most of it has been built in Knockout. So it would be good if there is ever time to sort of move this into Vue and then maybe utilize some of the extra Vue component features and things like that. So yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Stu. There we go. Rob's through it. Unless I missed somebody.
It's an easy.
Is this it?
It's an easy one. Is this packaged up as like an Arches application or something like that that the community can use?
It's not at the moment, no, just because it's so project specific. Sure. But yeah, no, it's definitely something I would like to get done, is to get into an application to use. So.
Yeah, I mean, because it's quite exciting, I think could be very useful.
Yeah, the way I built it was essentially to move it into an application, so I don't think it should be too difficult to do, but yeah, it's just the time to do it, yeah.
Thanks.
Just a brief follow-up to that, to foreshadow one thing I'm definitely going to throw out on Wednesday is how we get from project work to applications, because I think that's something that everybody's mentioned. Passing, I see a lot of nodding heads.
Great presentation. And I'll touch on something tomorrow in my talk. But I have a kind of a similar thing where I'm using advanced search to do filtering and sorting. So definitely would like to connect with you about that.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Thank you very much.